Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my storytelling session. Through a little magic and a little time travel, I am speaking to you amid a background of my office in Washington City in this year of 1864. Meeting through Zoom is even more exciting than the telegraph. No one can explain to me how it works, it just does. And I am a man of technology. Welcome to my office, located here on the second story of the President's Palace. Pull up a chair, and I'll give you a guided tour. My office area is located at the heart of the residence. Here, cabinet meetings are held on Tuesdays and Fridays. Here I greet guests and officials, read and answer my mail, pose for photographs, get my hair cut and my beard trimmed. It is the same room in which I signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It is also a place where I do a lot of pacing the floor, especially during times of crisis. Beyond these windows behind me stands the ugly, unfinished Washington Monument. Now, if I poke my head out and look to the far left, I can just see the unfinished dome of the U.S. Capitol. You know, even after 60 years, Washington is still a city under construction, and it is not a pleasant place to be. People who live here look forward to getting out of town. Carriages rumble along the cobblestone streets making noise. Since there are no sanitary services, garbage often lies in the gutters and dead cats float in the canals. Hogs, geese, and dogs just roam wherever they please. Out my window, I can also view the Potomac River and encampments of soldiers. Just down the private hallway beyond the library are our family's living quarters. Through here, I often walk to avoid prying eyes. Between the windows is an armchair and a writing desk with pigeonholes, a smaller desk against the window wall, and a large walnut table in the center of the room for cabinet meetings. My desk, as well as the large table, stay cluttered with maps and books, and it seems I can never get it cleared off. Why, I haven't even begun opening today's mail. What you can't see are two horsehair sofas and several wooden chairs. There are also maps propped up against the walls and some fallen behind the sofas. Over the fireplace on the west wall hangs an engraved portrait of Andrew Jackson. Well, that's a better view. Over the large table in the center of my office hangs a gas lighting fixture. It certainly beats lantern light, but it is not in the best working order, and sometimes guests complain of the stinking smells in the room. One morning, a gas leak almost overcame me. During the winter months, there's usually a fire burning in the fireplace here. Next to my desk is a bell cord I can pull to summon my staff, and my private washroom is located along the north wall. This office is dated, since it has been used ever since John Quincy Adams was here back in 1825. Its furnishings are battered and oilcloth covers the floors, but nothing, it seems, can cover the gloom which sometimes enters my mind. You see, these past few years have been a very difficult and trying time for our nation. One night, soon after this Civil War began between the northern and southern states, I paced in this office, looking sadly out those windows behind me toward the Potomac River and asking out loud when federal troops could be expected to arrive. Why don't they come? Why don't they come? Who do come on a daily basis are people of all kinds requesting personal favors. Often the requests involve jobs, pardons, and promotions. You wouldn't believe the type of requests I get. Here's a letter from a Republican. Dear Mr. President, Yesterday I worked hard for you all day and wore out my boots. Please send a new pair by mail. Well, I might as well just send them mine since they're uncomfortable anyway. But my policy has always been, whatever the troubles, my door is always open. When a guest arrives, I greet him or her with a smile and a simple, "What can I do for you?" Now, I don't expect you to sing me a song, but today is my birthday. And so, dear friends, it is fitting and proper to share with you a few thoughts which are presently on my mind. Now, firstly, I would like to reflect on the early days of our Republican Party. When I left the Whig Party to join the Republicans, the party was less than 6 years old. In March of 1854, in Ripon, Wisconsin, a group of citizens led by Alvin Earl Bouvet of New York had gathered in a schoolhouse to protest Congress's passing of the Kansas-Nebraska bill extending slavery and the freeing of a captured slave, Joshua Glover, by a mob from the Milwaukee jail. The protesters had gone into that meeting that day as Whigs, Free Soilers, and anti-slavery Democrats, and emerged as Republicans. Thus, the Republican Party was born. 2 years later, in June of 1856, the first National Convention met in Philadelphia. Its key platform, the firm opposition to the extension of slavery. As the meeting progressed, and with the platform decided, matters turned to a presidential candidate. The names of Salmon Chase of Ohio and Senator William Seward of New York had been put forth prior to the convention. Both were strong anti-slavery men, but neither seemed to have the burning desire or political backing to win the presidency. Without a doubt, the strongest candidate was 43-year-old retired Army officer John C. Fremont. The trailblazer was a national hero for his 5 courageous crossings of the Rocky Mountains and his leadership role in wresting California away from Mexico. William Dayton was nominated for vice president, winning over me and 13 other candidates. After Fremont's defeat to Democratic presidential candidate James Buchanan, the party continued to gain momentum in the northern states as the debate over slavery intensified. I, too, had decided to leave the disintegrating Whigs and join with the Republicans, considering slavery unjust, anti-progressive, and antagonistic to the idea of liberty and the existence of free society. At the second convention that year in Chicago, Senator William Seward of New York was projected to carry the nomination. Yet I had entered the contest with prospects. Firstly, winning the nomination was essential to carrying the West. I was a Westerner, or at least considered myself one. Second, I had built a national reputation from my debates and speeches in which I had opposed slavery while avoiding alienating modern voters. Thirdly, I had the support of the Illinois and Indiana delegations before the convention and was the strongest candidate other than Seward. When the convention votes were cast, Seward led on the first ballot. On the second ballot, the Pennsylvania delegation had switched sides, putting me in a tie with Seward. On the third ballot, other delegates had switched in my favor, and I had won our party's nomination. Largely since the Democratic Party was now split over slavery, I went on to defeat Southern Democrat John Breckinridge, Democrat Stephen Douglas, and Constitutional Union candidate John Bell of Tennessee to win the presidency. Now, at this time, I'd like to do for you a few excerpts from my various presentations and look-alike contests that I've taken part in over the years, all involving my beloved wife, Mary Todd. My second selection, based on a true story, is called Mary, Lady of Fashion. Now, Mary is both a wife and a mother. She does an excellent job of keeping our boys well groomed and well dressed. She also does a good job of keeping track of and wearing the latest fashions from Paris, France. Now, one evening, after attending a fashion show in New York City, Mary dashed into reception wearing a dress with a long piece of fur trailing behind it. I found out later the Parisians called it a train. When I saw the dress, I said to a friend of mine, "Woo! Looks like our cat has a long tail tonight." Well, he laughed. I then walked over to Mary and noticed how low cut the neck of her dress was. I then whispered to her, "Don't you think that dress might be in better style if some of that tail were cut off and wrapped around your neck?" Well, she didn't laugh. After all, she wasn't the one born in a log cabin. She just looked at me with icy eyes, tossed back her head, and walked away. Oh, she was a classic. As my third selection, I would like to do a fictional parody written for a look-alike contest long ago called Technology of My Day. Now, last night I was standing in the War Department telegraph office, awaiting an update from General Thomas on the status of the fall of Atlanta. As I watched the operator tap out messages, I could not help but admire that technology. I'm intrigued by the idea that if I could learn how to operate a teletype myself, I might sit in this very office and transmit private messages directly to my commanders in the field. I am amazed by the stretching of wires across the northern states and their potential for communication. In the future, I can see telegraph lines connecting businesses and even homes, allowing civilians to communicate inexpensively over great distances. To make a point, my predecessor, James Buchanan, recently transmitted a message to Queen Victoria in England by means of a cable running under the ocean. And in addition to medicine, perhaps electricity might one day prove useful for other purposes as well. I'm intrigued by the technological advancements just during my lifetime. Since my youth, I have witnessed advancements in travel from horse trails to 22,000 miles of rail track in our northern states. I have seen advancements from mostly country doctors to an extensive hospital system for soldiers. Thus far, the Civil War has brought forth the submarine, the flamethrower, landmines, grenades, observation balloons, iron-hulled warships, and repeating rifles. In our larger cities, gas lighting has replaced lanterns. I particularly enjoy having my picture taken. And think about it. If a man can design a steam engine, a steam-powered carriage is not far off. When I leave this office, I plan to take Mary on a trip to the Holy Land on board one of those new steam-powered hybrid sailing ships. Now, many times I've observed a bird in flight and pondered if man might even one day fly. But humans, flying like birds, how could it be? Because you and I are heavier than air. And any flying machine containing a man would likewise need to be lighter than air. But I say, let's don't discount the idea entirely. After all, a cannonball or a mini ball are each heavier than air and both can still fly. I've always been especially intrigued by astronomy. My son Robert assures me that one day he intends to build an observatory. The other night he brought up an idea at dinner about a man traveling beyond the earth into the heavens. I was mystified. How can it be? I asked Robert. At that moment, Mary interrupted. Mr. Lincoln, do you believe man might one day travel to the moon? Might I one day travel to the moon? Mary, I said, I believe you're already there. Now, my fourth and final selection, based on a true story, is called My Dream of Death. You know, nothing in my life has affected me as profoundly as a dream I recently had. When I told Miss Lincoln about it, she remarked, "Why you look so dreadfully solemn? Do you believe in dreams?" "I can't say that I do," I returned, "but I had one the other night which has haunted me ever since." Miss Lincoln exclaimed, "You frighten me. What is the matter?" "I am afraid," I said, "that I have done wrong to mention the subject at all." Miss Lincoln strongly urged me to tell the dream. I hesitated, but finally began. About 10 days ago, I retired very late and began to dream. There seemed to be a death-like stillness. Then I heard sobs, as if a throng of people were weeping. I wandered downstairs, but the mourners were invisible. I went from room to room. It was light in all the rooms, and all the people were grieving as if their hearts would break. I was puzzled and alarmed. What could be the meaning of all this? I kept on until I arrived at the East Room, where I met with a sickening surprise. Before me stood a catafalque bearing a loaded casket. Soldiers were acting as guards, and many people were gazing upon the corpse inside. "Who is dead in the executive mansion?" I demanded. "The president," was the answer. "He was killed by an assassin." Then came a loud burst of grief from the crowd, which awoke me from my dream. I slept no more that night, and although it was only a dream, I have been strangely annoyed by it ever since. "Well, that is horrid," said Miss Lincoln. "I wish you had not told it at all. I am glad I don't believe in dreams, or I should be in terror from this time forth." "Well," I responded thoughtfully, "it is only a dream, Mary." Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. I do hope you have enjoyed this little chat. My thanks to Mr. Greg Anderson, who I hope is tuned in, for the use of this office background. My thanks to Terry Hayter, to whom I owe a debt of gratitude in arranging this talk. I now leave you with just one final thought. Wherever you may go in life, be sure to put your feet in the right place and stand firm.